Every city has a soul, a heartbeat constructed of traffic and talk, but the city of Amaranthine, Pennsylvania, a vast, quarantined city abandoned by the world and that lay between mist-covered mountains, its heartbeat was wildly different. It didn't beat with life but resonated, a twin pulse formed from a solitary, cataclysmic instant of symmetry and breakage, a heartbeat which had waited, quiet and hungry, for decades for a new family to occupy its vacant, grime-covered streets, for a new pair of twins to play its foul, ancient game, and it found them in the Lawson family, who drove into town in their battered SUV on a day when the sun appeared to seep a greenish-yellow light through the constant haze, crawling through the enormous, cracked concrete wall that carried the stark, final notice. Condemned, by order of federal quarantine authority, absolutely no entry, a gate that creaked shut behind them with an air of dreadful finality. Within the car, Mark Lawson, a man with tired eyes and practical heart in desperate need of a new beginning after years marred by financial disaster and personal collapse, held the steering wheel, repeating this was their new start, an entire city theirs for the taking, a promise of independence and solitude, and his wife Sarah, an artist with sensitive, observant heart, nervously fidgeted with her antique camera, already enthralled and repelled by the peculiar, fluid nature of the light, and in the back of the car, their identical 17-year-old daughters, the twin hearts at the center of the impending storm, Alara, pale and sharp-eyed, drawing continuously in a leather-bound notebook, her quietness containing depths of unuttered scrutiny, and Maya, hair dyed with a rebellious splash of pink, scrolling through a dead phone, already expressing the fear they all felt, saying the city looked like the backdrop for a zombie movie, something Alara repeated by observing the deep, biological silence, the lack of even birds or insects, a silence of natural sound. Their new home was a huge, crumbling Victorian mansion sitting on a hill, its style strangely asymmetrical with one tower a little bigger than the other, a fact that seemed ominously deliberate, and that first evening, as they moved in by the light of lanterns, the house presented itself not with phantom howls but with a tremendous, structural bang from the second floor that caused them all to stand stock still, a noise that Alara, with her preternatural ability to notice such things, recognized as two noises perfectly played one over the top of the other, an occurrence that would soon prove a horrific refrain, later followed by a soft, atonal W humming of a children's song that seemed to come from the walls themselves, creeping into their sleep. The subsequent days were a gradual, creeping disintegration, starting with a walk down the main street, a frozen moment in time of antecedent 1970s in which cars were coated with dust and parked, and store windows reflected fashions from half a century before, a museum of a life suddenly stopped short, where Sarah's photographs, once printed overnight in her amateur pantry darkroom, captured the city's hidden population, a family with faces twisted in silent cries recorded in the window of Joe's Diner, and a thin, tall figure made up of fluid, fractured glass standing in the window of their own house, images Mark frantically dismissed as double exposures and light leaks, a denial that was the first fissure in their family cohesion. The attention of the city, however, was firmly on the twins, and the hauntings grew deeply personal. For Maya, it started with her own reflection in her vanity mirror smiling at her, then whispers in her own voice slithering out of air vents, saying she was just the copy, the lesser-loved echo, and for Alara, her own sketchbook reflections accusingly stabbed towards her drawings, and the pale, smiling face she had glimpsed in the grimy window of the sealed, amaranthine mirror and glass works, now started surfacing in the fringes of every dark corner, a doppelganger waiting to strike. Sarah, equipped with an ever-growing stack of terrifying photographs in a pile of dusty, yellowed newspapers discovered in the soggy basement, started to assemble the terrifying truth that Amaranthine was not haunted in the classical sense but was itself a living, parasitic creature, established by twin brothers, the Caraways, architects fixated on flawless symmetry who constructed the city and its central mirror works, a business that somehow translated thought and reflection, literally, until in 1978 during the Great Resonance, the city, through its millions of reflective surfaces, could no longer contain the duality of thousands of souls and tried to eliminate it, to select an original from each pair of reflections, devouring the whole population in one quiet event that left behind only echoes, and now hungry for fresh energy, had discovered a new set of twins, its ancient prey, and was beginning the same awful process all over again. The tension mounted violently on the seventh day when Maya, alone and furious, entered the brutalist city hall and discovered the central piece, a giant, gorgeous monstrosity of interlocked mirrors that formed infinite regressions, where her thousands of reflections turned on her, one murmuring her deepest doubts, asking her if she was certain she was the original, prompting her to stomp one of the mirrors with a stapler, an action that made the whole sculpture scream with the noise of a million shattered shards. And, miles away at the house, Alara screamed out and grasped her cheek as a thin, bleeding gash materialized as if from an invisible shard of glass, a physical representation of their bound fate. That evening, the city dropped all facade, the electricity failed and the buzzing in the walls resolved into a deafening, driving drone. The halls of the house stretched to impossible distances, doors led into rooms they could not possibly lead to, and all reflective surfaces, the TV screen, the blade of a knife, a window, displayed the same face of the glassy, towering manifestation of Amaranthine standing just behind them, its surface a whirling vortex of stolen recollections and shattered selves, hurting and manipulating and pushing towards confrontation. Alone, their parents lost in the ever-changing hell of their own home, Alara and Maya fled through a funhouse mirror reflection of their street, chased by glimmering, whispering beings constructed of glass and light reciting their secrets and their terrors, until they were backed into the very face of the thing itself, which extended a shard-tipped finger toward the now unlocked doors of the mirror works, where the chains cracked and fell like paper, the order irrevocable, and this. Within the factory, a glass cathedral of forgotten industry, they discovered the center of the horror. A massive, crystalline machine with two empty slots in the shape of human silhouettes, the last, horrific decision made clear, and as their own predatory doubles stepped out from the surrounding mirrors, their faces sharp and hungry, relaying the city's mantra, there can only be one memory, one story, the other becomes part of the echo. Maya, in a moment of stunning clarity and sacrifice, looked at her sister, the one she thought was always the stronger, the true original, and stated she would not play the city's game, and instead of attacking Alara or succumbing to the machine, she turned and sprinted directly at the manifestation, not to destroy it but to hold on to it, her body blending with the swirling glass, her bright, rebellious spirit filling the entity, her face reappearing one final time in the vortex to smile regretfully at Alara before the entire form coalesced, freezing into a stunning, tragic statue of interwoven glass and memory, and with a city-wide sigh, the suffocating energy dissipated, the whispers stopped, and Amaranthine, finally sated, fell truly and completely silent. 30 days after, the front gate creaked open of its own accord, and the three remaining Lawsons, Mark, Sarah, and an empty Alara holding her sister's pink hair tie, emerged, eternally traumatized, fleeing from the gray, dead city. But when Alara looked in the rearview mirror, she didn't see the road behind her, she saw the main street of Amaranthine and Maya, still whole and smiling, a last, loving echo eternally trapped in the reflection, a permanent fixture of the city's hungry, mirrored soul.